following Minute Rice video is a clip taken from my interview with Vandersteel, journalist, researcher, and patriot. You can watch the full interview on Rumble, Odysee, Library, or Bitchute. Links are going to be in the video description as well as the pinned comment. Be sure you are following me on those platforms.
Why am I a part of this? How do I get out of this? Well, about that time, a friend of mine, Bobby Lawrence, who was a previous U.S. Senate candidate in Pennsylvania in 2017 and 18, contacted me and said, Ann, I want you to take a look at something. And he had me on the phone for about 3 hours and went through the American State National presentation. And he was kind of somewhat new at it himself. Not really. He'd been studying it for about 6 months. But he blew my mind. And I was like, whoa, 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 this is too much information. I got to go. Send me some stuff. I got to read this. And so based on my busy work schedule with Steel Truth, broadcasting 5 days a week, traveling every weekend, it took me a lot longer than most people who have the time to sit home and crunch data. That being said, I started to look at everything Bobby sent me, and I understood historically, based on Supreme Court cases, other law cases, treaties, et cetera, that in fact, what he was telling me was that our history had been a lie on a lot of things. That, everybody thinks the 14th Amendment, oh, it's so great. It made you a U.S. citizen and you have the right to vote. Well, guess what? Were we not voting before the 14th Amendment in 1868? Yeah,
Right.
we were electing public officials. Now we're voting in our slave masters. There's a difference, and there's a duality, and there's a parallel in language, but really it's not parallel at all. The juris, where you stand, are you on the land? Are you in the air, or are you in the water? We'll get to that in a second. And diction, words matter. Remember Bill Clinton, it depends on the definition of is. Well, it does. Words matter.
Yeah.
And in order to better understand our founding fathers, you have to really go back in time and get a dictionary, Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition for that time period, and read the Constitution, read the Declaration of Independence, and read our treaties word for word in that time period to better understand what it was they meant. And then know going forward that very smart and devious people, attorneys and lawyers, started to amend the Constitution. And everything from the 13th on, the amendments really weren't in the best interest. They corporatized our country. And that's why in 1868, the 14th Amendment, making us all U.S. citizens, basically stole our state citizenship, our state nationality. Because if I was alive back then living in Virginia, I was a citizen of the state of Virginia, the Republic of Virginia, the Commonwealth, right? And I that was my nationality. And I was electing public servants to go to DC or to, go to my state house and represent me. Today, we're voting these people in and they work for the corporation. And again, 1868, the 14th Amendment made us all U.S. citizens. And then in 1871, 3 years later, they incorporated the United States and
the
made
Act
the
of
corporation.
1871, the Organic Act of Washington,
Correct.
District of Columbia.
So, that's a legal operation. Basically, they've nationalized everybody born in America to be federal citizens at birth. And that's essentially what they call the naturalization clause. So as a federal citizen, you are basically a municipal servant and employee of the corporate federal government. And that's why the mandates and their amendments apply to you if you're a federal citizen. But if you opt out of their system and restore your birthright, which when I was born, I didn't have a choice. My parents signed me up with a birth certificate and got me a social security number because they thought that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And instead, they didn't realize they had basically enslaved me to the corporate United States. Now that I know what I know, I've opted out. I've submitted all their statutory paperwork to address them in their juris and their diction to tell them I'm opting out, and corrected my status back to one of a free woman, an American state national. I'm a Florida state national to be specific. And I've even used the IRS paperwork, their Form 56. Look it up, Form 56 at the IRS.gov, to reestablish my fiduciary relationship to that foreign corporation, which, by the way, doesn't take your money and put it in the U.S. Treasury. It goes to the IMF, to the World Bank. It's chartered by the United Nations. It's a foreign corporation. It was first in the Philippines and Puerto Rico. So FYI, your money isn't going to the federal government or where you think it is. So that being said, I've reestablished my relationship and told them that my fictional entity, Ann Vandersteel, all caps, is now decedent. That social security number that was attached to that all caps vessel, Ann Vandersteel, is decedent. I am the trustee and beneficiary of that vessel as Ann Vandersteel, living woman. And that relationship that you had is terminated back to when I was born. I'm correcting the entire thing because I didn't know. My parents didn't tell me. They didn't know. It was a fraud. At 1868, 1878, United States versus Throckmorton, fraud vitiates everything. So again, this is all about citing precedent, case law, Supreme Court case law, and otherwise to prove the point. And the 14th Amendment can make you either a state national or a U.S. citizen or both. I define myself only in this spectrum over here as a state national, and I've opted out.